Hi, I'm Scott Petti. Welcome back. I recently was going through boxes of vintage photos of my family when I came across a box that belonged to my great uncle. And he was an archaeologist from the 30s through the 60s and traveled the world. When I opened the box, I found a treasure of old photographs, documents, passports, and journaling. So I immediately knew I wanted to do a scrap page out of it. Basically, it's going to look like the top of his desk. He's packing up, getting ready to leave the hotel and come back to the States. So let me show you how I did that. So I started by scanning all the images, passports, everything, even the tape measure I scanned in. And if you remember from a previous webisode, Digital Travel, I have already done the layout on my computer with Photoshop Elements 4. So basically, I'm going to just have to reprint these items and copy what I've already done. Now this is a 2-page spread, and I'm using two 12 by 12 pieces of foam core. I'm going to build one side of it right now. Now the first thing we want to do is make the flap. And to do that, I'm using a fabric that I'm also going to use as my background, and I'm going to make a hinge out of that. You simply spray about an inch strip on the back. You may want to hold a piece of cardstock there so you don't get the rest of it covered with the spray adhesive, and the side that you want to use is going to go forward and just glue that down. Next, we flip it over, and this is going to be the flap for the side of the ink blotter, and just set that down in place and fold your fabric over. And now you have a nice hinge. Now you're looking at this fabric edge, we need to cover that. And I chose another piece of black mat board, but instead of just going black straight on there, I decided to do a little accent color. So I chose brown. Brown and black go very well together, and it looks very vintage. And I'm going to glue that there. You glue the piece on top, leave a little bit of the brown paper showing, and when you're done, you have that. I've applied the fabric to both sides, and it's a nice hinge. Now, because I've already done the layout in a computer, I have a diagram to go by. I don't really have to give the layout much thought other than copy what I've already done. So I printed up all my images in the Epson R1800. It's a fantastic printer. Now the passport and tickets, if you're wondering where you're going to find vintage tickets, if you go to the design guide after this episode, they're going to be offered as a download. Just download them and print them full size, and you can get vintage tickets. This is a document that I reproduced in Photoshop Elements, and that's going to go right here. Now don't worry that it's hanging over on the edge. Remember, it's a 2-page layout, and when it's done, I'm going to put them together and trim it. I want this piece on the other side, though, so that it's not two separate pages. I want it to flow continually. There's some of his money. Now this picture, fantastic picture. Here's the original. It's pretty small, so I scanned it at a high resolution, and if you look at it, there's my great uncle sitting there on a temple wall. I wanted to give it the same look as the vintage picture, the original. So just with decal scissors, just simply trim the edge, and it's going to do that cut automatically. So trim around the picture, and it gives it that nice vintage cut. And that goes, according to my diagram, right there. Next, I'm going to add some images to the inside of the flap. This is my great uncle's graduation picture from college, and right after that is when he went and he became an archaeologist and traveled the world. So I thought it was a good picture, and that's kind of the start of his journey. Now I'm going to add some journaling, which is just a brief story of his life, and I chose to print it out on a tracing paper with typewriter font just to give it that old look. And I'm going to tear the bottom of that. Now I found when I put the tracing paper on here, it was kind of hard to read, so I used the same brown paper as a background that'll sit on, and I'm going to tear that as well. Now let me show you the finished page. And to get the full effect, I want to lay it flat like an ink blotter on a desk. And as you can see, I added some three-dimensional items, some coins, feathers. Here are the flaps that open up on the side. And the passport, if you open it up, I decided to scan all 4 of his passports, and I printed the visas up on one piece of paper, which I did an accordion fold on. And this is the reason why I did the foam core, is I cut out a niche and made a journal. And I scanned his journal and his drawings, and that's another show entirely, how to build that, and that just tucks right in there. So why don't you go digging for some treasures of your own? I'm Scott Petti. Thanks again.
For step-by-step instructions on how to create this week's project, download the design guide featuring special make-it-your-own bonus tips.